The alien queen doubted him. "You won't survive one night." His reply changed everything. The alien queen had ruled her empire for longer than most stars had burned in the sky. She had seen species rise, fail, beg, and disappear. Strength, in her mind, followed clear rules. Power survived, weakness faded. So when the human envoy stood alone in the center of her great chamber, she already believed she knew the ending. He was smaller than most beings present. No armor, no visible tools, just a plain suit made for comfort, not display. His name was Elias Wren, and he had been sent by humanity as their first official representative. The queen studied him from her elevated seat. Her voice echoed gently but firmly through the chamber. "You will not survive one night." The words were not a threat. They were a statement of fact, delivered with calm certainty. Around her, advisors and observers shifted slightly. Many species had stood where Elias stood now. None had passed the trial of vigil. The trial was old, older than the empire itself. It was meant to measure worth without harm. No weapons, no pain, only endurance. One full planetary night inside an environment designed to challenge the mind, the senses, and the sense of self. Most broke long before dawn. Elias did not react the way the queen expected. He did not argue, he did not show fear, he did not ask for mercy. He smiled faintly, as if considering a puzzle. "Then I'll learn something before morning," he said. A quiet ripple moved through the chamber. Some of the queen's eyes narrowed. That answer did not fit any category they understood. The queen leaned forward slightly. "You accept the trial?" "Yes," Elias replied, "if this is how you decide who matters." The queen paused. Humans were new. Their data suggested creativity, emotional depth, and unpredictable behavior, but those traits had never helped others survive the night. "So be it," she said. "Observe carefully." Elias was escorted away, not by guards but by silent guides made of living crystal. They led him through corridors that slowly changed shape as he walked, walls bending and shifting like thought made solid. He noticed, but he did not panic. He took steady steps and kept his breathing calm. The trial chamber was vast. Not a room, but an open environment beneath an artificial sky. The ground beneath his feet felt solid one moment and slightly soft the next. The light overhead slowly dimmed, colors shifting through shades unknown on Earth. When the guides left, the space grew quiet. The planetary night began. At first, the changes were subtle. Gravity pulled a little stronger, then lighter. Sounds echoed strangely, sometimes delayed, sometimes too close. The air carried faint whispers, not words, but patterns that felt like thoughts almost forming. Elias sat down slowly. He did not try to explore right away. He looked at his hands. He flexed his fingers. "Okay," he said aloud, his voice steady. "Let's see what you do." The observers watched closely. Most species responded by testing limits, trying to control the space. That usually led to panic. Elias did not rush. He stood, walked a short distance, then returned to the same spot. He was mapping his environment by repetition. Time passed, though it was hard to measure. The sky darkened fully, revealing unfamiliar stars that moved far too fast. The ground tilted slightly, forcing Elias to adjust his stance. He laughed softly. "Nice trick," he said. The whispers grew stronger. They echoed memories, fragments of emotion. A sense of isolation crept in, gentle but persistent. The trial did not attack, it suggested. Elias closed his eyes and began speaking again, quietly this time. He talked about Earth, about rain hitting metal roofs, about street lights and late nights, about sitting alone in small rooms and still feeling connected to others far away. The queen watched from her chamber, intrigued despite herself. The trial fed on internal conflict. Humans, it seemed, carried theirs openly. As the night deepened, the environment shifted again. Light pulsed slowly, out of rhythm with Elias' breathing. The ground cooled. The whispers tried to pull his attention inward, pushing doubt, uncertainty, the idea that he was insignificant. Elias stood and stretched. "Yeah," he said calmly, "I know that feeling." Instead of fighting it, he acknowledged it. He named it. The observers noted rising fluctuations in the bioarchitecture. The system adjusted, confused. No one had ever responded like this. Hours passed. Elias grew tired. His movements slowed, but he did not collapse. He set small routines. 10 steps forward, 10 steps back. Counting quietly, telling simple stories aloud. At one point, he stopped and looked up at the artificial sky. "You don't have to impress me," he said. "I've seen worse nights." The queen's attention sharpened. Worse nights? The trial had undone entire civilizations. The whispers shifted again, now focusing on identity. Who are you when no one sees you? Why do you matter? These questions had broken minds before. Elias sat cross-legged and rested his hands on his knees. I'm human, he said. That's usually enough to make things complicated. A faint change rippled through the chamber. The trial was meant to overwhelm. Instead, it was being answered. As the night reached its deepest phase, the environment became more abstract. Shapes blurred. Distance lost meaning. Elias felt disoriented, but he did not panic. He focused on breathing, in and out, slow, steady. He began humming softly, not a song with words, just a tune, something familiar. The observers exchanged silent signals. The system was responding. It adjusted again, not to increase difficulty, but to understand. Elias opened his eyes and smiled faintly. There you are, he whispered. You're curious too. For the first time in the history of the trial, the environment paused its escalation. The queen rose slowly from her seat. He is not resisting, she said quietly. He is engaging. The night was not over. Dawn was still far away. Elias was exhausted, his mind heavy, his body strained by constant change, but he was still standing. As the artificial stars shifted toward a new pattern, Elias looked toward the horizon and spoke one final time before silence returned. Whatever you're trying to test, he said, I hope you're learning too. The queen watched the human figure standing alone beneath the alien sky, and for the first time since the trial was created, uncertainty entered her thoughts. Morning had not yet come. And the night was not finished with him. The artificial night began to change in ways no observer had ever recorded before. It did not grow darker or heavier. Instead, it slowed. The shifting light steadied, and the moving stars above Elias followed smoother paths as if listening rather than testing. Elias stood still for a long moment. His body was tired and his thoughts felt thick, but he was calm. He sensed that something had shifted. The pressure that had been quietly pushing at his mind eased slightly, like a question no longer demanding an answer. He took a careful step forward. The ground no longer tilted away from him. It responded, firm and steady. He let out a long breath he had not realized he was holding. Far away, the alien queen watched in silence. The trial chamber's readings showed patterns that should not exist. The system was designed to escalate until collapse or withdrawal. Instead, it was adapting around the human. This is not failure, one advisor said carefully, but it is not success as we define it. The queen did not answer. Her attention was fully fixed on the lone figure beneath the artificial sky. Elias sat again, slower this time. He rested his back straight and closed his eyes. The whispers returned, but they were softer now, less demanding, more like echoes than voices. He spoke quietly, not for the watchers, but for himself. I know, he said. You're trying to see what I am. The air around him warmed slightly. Elias smiled tiredly. Fair enough. Time passed in a strange way. It no longer felt like something pushing against him. Instead, it flowed around him. Elias focused on simple things, breathing, counting heartbeats, remembering faces. Not important ones, not leaders or heroes, but ordinary people. A shop owner who used to wave. A neighbor who always complained but still checked in. The trial reached what should have been its breaking phase. For others, this was where identity blurred and fear grew sharp. For Elias, the questions came, but they did not cut deeply. Who are you without purpose? Why should you continue? What remains when you are alone? Elias opened his eyes and looked at the horizon. I'm still here, he said simply. That's enough to start with. The system hesitated again. Data streams spiked and settled. The environment adjusted its light, creating a gentle glow instead of harsh contrast. The queen felt something unfamiliar tighten in her chest. The trial was no longer in control. As the long night approached its final stretch, Elias began to struggle physically. His legs trembled when he stood. His hands shook slightly. He did not hide it. He leaned against an invisible slope of air, steadying himself. I won't pretend this is easy, he muttered. But easy was never the point. The artificial sky slowly began to brighten, not dawn yet, but the promise of it. A color shift no species had ever seen during the trial. The advisors noticed first. My queen, one said, the cycle is advancing early. That is not possible, another replied, but it was happening. Elias looked up as the light changed. His eyes widened slightly. He felt a strange sense of relief, not victory, but understanding. The night had asked its questions. He had answered in the only way he knew how. When the light reached the horizon, the trial chamber began to open. The environment softened, edges becoming clear again. The whispers faded into silence. Elias took one final breath and stood upright, even though his body begged him to sit. When dawn fully arrived, the chamber doors opened. Observers moved quickly but carefully. No one rushed him. No one restrained him. Elias stepped forward on his own, slow but steady. The alien queen descended from her seat and approached him. Up close, her presence was overwhelming, ancient, and vast. Elias felt it, but he did not bow. He simply met her gaze. "You have endured the night," the queen said. Elias nodded. "Yes, that alone is unprecedented," she continued. But endurance was not what changed the trial. Elias waited. He was too tired to guess. "You altered it," she said. "You did not challenge its purpose. You expanded it." Elias thought for a moment. "I didn't mean to," he said honestly. "I just didn't want to lose myself." Silence followed. The queen studied him not as a subject, but as a question. "How did you survive?" she asked. Elias considered many answers, then chose the simplest. "I stopped trying to win," he said. "I just stayed human." The queen straightened slowly. Around them, advisors whispered in disbelief. The trial of Vigil had stood unchanged for millennia. Now its data showed a new outcome. The queen raised her voice so all could hear. "The trial was designed to measure worth through resistance," she said. "But this human revealed a flaw in our design." She turned back to Elias. "You did not resist the night," she said. "You accepted it without surrender." Elias shrugged gently. "That's how we survive most things." The queen was silent for a long time. Then she made a decision that would echo across her empire. "The trial of Vigil is no longer a gate of exclusion," she declared. "It will become a bridge of understanding." Murmurs filled the chamber. This was unheard of. She looked at Elias once more. "Humanity will not be judged by our old measures." Elias exhaled slowly. "That's good," he said. "We're terrible at fitting old measures." For the first time, something like amusement touched the queen's expression. "You are different," she admitted. "Not stronger, not weaker. Different in a way we did not prepare for." Elias smiled faintly. "We say the same thing about the universe." Later, as Elias was escorted away to rest, the queen remained alone in the chamber. She replayed the trial's recordings, watching the moment when the system hesitated when it listened. "We doubted his survival," she said softly to herself. "We did not consider our own." Far beyond the chamber, messages were sent across the empire. The night had been passed. Not by force, not by dominance, but by understanding. And somewhere in the vast record of civilizations, a new note was added. Humanity did not conquer the darkness. They learned how to sit with it. And in doing so, they changed everything. The days after the trial felt unreal to Elias. His body rested, but his mind stayed awake. He was given a quiet space within the alien capital, a place filled with soft light and slow-moving shapes meant to calm visiting minds. It worked mostly. Still, he often found himself staring at nothing, thinking about the night that had changed so much. News of the trial spread quickly through the empire, not as rumor but as recorded fact. The trial of Vigil had ended differently. The system logs showed hesitation, adjustment, and something close to learning. Scholars argued, elders questioned. Younger species listened with curiosity. Humanity had not been expected to matter so soon. The alien queen did not summon Elias immediately. That, too, was unusual. Instead, she watched. She ordered long studies not of the human body but of human stories, recorded myths, songs, personal journals. She wanted to understand the pattern behind what she had witnessed. Again and again, one idea returned. Humans endured not by hardening but by adapting meaning. Elias was eventually invited to walk the outer gardens of the capital. The space was open to the sky, with living structures growing upward like slow thoughts. The queen joined him there without ceremony. "You are recovering," she said. "Yes," Elias replied, "slowly." "Your species values slowness," she observed. "We value not breaking," he answered. They walked in silence for a while. Around them, other beings paused respectfully but did not approach. The queen spoke again. "The trial revealed a weakness in our empire," she said, "not in strength but in imagination." Elias considered that. "That happens," he said gently. "Systems get very good at what they expect." She stopped walking and turned toward him. "And what do you expect from us now, human?" Elias was honest. "Nothing specific, just that we talk before we test each other again." The queen studied his face, searching for hidden intent. She found none. "That may be the most dangerous request you could make," she said. Elias smiled. "It usually is." As weeks passed, humanity's status shifted, not elevated above others, but placed differently. Humans were invited to observe, to explain, to translate ideas across cultures that had never truly listened to one another. Elias found himself speaking often, not as a leader, but as a storyteller. He explained how humans faced long nights on their own world, how they built meaning when certainty was absent, how they survived not because they were fearless, but because they shared fear instead of hiding it. Some species struggled with this idea, others leaned closer. The trial of vigil was opened again, but carefully. Volunteers entered not to prove dominance, but to experience reflection. Some failed, some succeeded, some simply left with new questions. That, the Queen decided, was acceptable. One evening, as artificial stars lit the capital, the Queen stood before her council. "We believed survival was about resistance," she said. "The humans showed us it is also about relationship." The council listened. The empire shifted. Far away on Earth, the news arrived slowly. Humans learned that their envoy had not only survived, but changed an ancient system. Reactions were mixed: pride, confusion, relief. Elias sent one message home. "I didn't win," it said. "I listened." The Queen later met Elias one final time before his return. They stood beneath a sky that mimicked neither Earth nor the Empire's home star. "You will be remembered," she said, "not as a conqueror." "I'm glad," Elias replied. "We've had enough of those." She inclined her head. "You have altered the direction of our future." Elias looked thoughtful. "Then take care of it." As his ship prepared to depart, the Queen watched from a distance. She felt no regret, only curiosity. The night had tested a human. The human had answered. And in that answer, the galaxy had learned a new way to endure. The journey back to Earth took longer than Elias expected. Not because of distance, but because of invitations. At 3 different stations along the way, ships adjusted course to travel beside his. Messages arrived asking for conversation, not negotiation. Questions, not demands. Elias answered when he could. Sometimes with long explanations, sometimes with simple stories. He spoke about nights that felt endless, about sitting with uncertainty, about how humans learned to wait without giving up. Many listened quietly. Some did not understand, but they listened anyway. That alone felt like progress. When Elias finally returned to Earth, there was no grand parade. Humanity was still learning what his experience meant. Leaders debated policy. Scientists studied data from the trial. Philosophers argued late into the night. Elias did not attend most of those meetings. He chose instead to visit small places, schools, community halls, quiet rooms where people asked honest questions. "What was the alien queen like?" someone asked. "Old," Elias said, "and curious." "Were you scared?" "Yes," he replied. But that wasn't the problem. The idea spread slowly, like dawn rather than lightning. Humanity's strength was not just tools or technology. It was the ability to remain present when answers were missing. Beyond Earth, the Empire continued to change. The alien queen ordered the creation of listening chambers, spaces where species could sit together without agenda. No trials, no measurements, just time. At first, attendance was low. Old habits held strong, but younger civilizations came. Those who had always felt judged by standards they did not choose. They spoke. They shared. They waited. The Queen observed from afar. She no longer believed leadership meant standing above. Sometimes it meant staying still long enough for others to speak. One cycle, she reviewed the original recording of Elias during the trial. She noticed something she had missed before. At the deepest moment of the night, when exhaustion showed clearly in his movements, he had still made space for curiosity. Not about winning. About understanding. That realization stayed with her. Elsewhere in the galaxy, rumors spread. Not of human power, but of human patience. Not of conquest, but of presence. Some empires dismissed it as weakness. Others paid attention. A delegation arrived at Earth, not armored, not guarded, but open. They asked to learn how humans handled long isolation, how they faced uncertainty without collapsing. Elias attended that meeting quietly. He listened more than he spoke. "We don't handle it perfectly," he said at last. "We just don't pretend it isn't there." Months passed. The galaxy did not suddenly become peaceful. Old conflicts remained. Fear did not vanish, but something subtle shifted. When systems failed, fewer reached for dominance first. Some paused, some asked different questions. What does this pressure mean? What is this fear trying to protect? What happens if we stay with it a little longer? The alien queen convened her council again, this time with new members. Voices once excluded now sat among the ancient ones. Our empire was built on survival, she said, but survival without understanding leads only to repetition. No one argued. On Earth, Elias walked one evening along a familiar street. The lights flickered on as the sky darkened. A child laughed somewhere nearby. The night felt ordinary, and yet it felt different. He understood now that the trial had never truly ended. It had expanded. Humanity would continue to face nights, so would the galaxy. But now there was a shared language for it, not victory, not defeat. Endurance with awareness. Far away beneath alien stars, the queen looked out over her world and allowed herself something rare. Hope. The night still came.